Welcome sailing fans to the 2014 ISAF World Cup of Sailing in Palma de Mallorca, Spain. I'm Ben Remacher from the 49er class, and what you see in front of you is the first leg of the first race of the day for the 49ers. We've got 25 of the best teams in the world here racing in lumpy and wavy conditions. The breeze was about 28 knots this morning. It seems to have died down below the 20 knot mark, and we expect it to continue decreasing all day. Left over, however, are giant swells and waves from about a 2-day storm here. And many of the teams spent a lot of their day swimming yesterday. We were only able to get 2 races off, but today's a new day, and we expect some great racing over the 3 races in front of us. The teams are about 2/3 of the way up the first beat, and first overall in the regatta are the Kiwis, New Zealanders, Peter Burling and Blair Tuke. They've had quite a successful run, winning or placing second in more than half the races so far. Can't quite pick out where they are on the screen yet, but we will try and find them for you as soon as we can.
Blurry.
Yeah.
Probably because it's a 720.
Want to see?
That better?
It takes a long time. Yeah, that's better.
That's the top mark there. Don't go past it. Top mark. the final day,
Yeah.
is there going to be any change to the course size?
Yeah.
Like a lot shorter? Or do you do it with the tight? Germans in the lead. Germans are fastest. Round top mark.
Team's just getting to the first mark.
Germans and Kiwis, I think.
Cameraman thinks it's the Kiwis, so it could be. There's only one in the top fleet here. If it is, that would be pretty par for the course in the last few days, especially when the breeze has been up. Those two have been flying. For those of you who tuned in yesterday, you'll have seen we were at 1080p and it was higher quality but choppy. We've stepped it down to 720p today, and hopefully it's a smoother image for you, but we're noticing it's a little bit blurry and pixelated, so we're broadcasting via 3G network this week thanks to Movistar, and we really appreciate that, but it seems like 4G is necessary to get a really great image to you all, along with, of course, the course being another few hundred meters closer to us would be nice. Kiwis, or the leaders anyways, jibed relatively early, so I don't know if they think the course is skewed or if they just wanted to go down the middle of it. So we've had a few people jibe early and a few people continue on. Fourth and fifth place, the blue and red spinnakers have gone straight set quite a ways. We see the bright orange spinnaker on the far right, jibe set early. The leaders have just jibed again, so they've already done 2 jibes on this downwind. Indicates to me that the guys aren't on the limit. They're able to do what they want out there. So that's good. That means they're racing to their full potential, and we should be in for some epic stories. Obviously, not a lot of agreement in the fleet and what's favored. We've got half the fleet going straight, half the fleet jibe set, and the leaders down the middle. It's not a very normal direction that we're racing in. Typically in Garda, we'll see angles 90 degrees right or left of this, more often left with the sea breeze. So be very doubtful for any of these teams to have much experience with this wind angle. There's also still a lot of remnant swell, and I imagine to the right of your screen it would be lesser than to the left, since the bay opening is to the far left of the screen. So what we're getting now is the swell wrapping around the point, and right and to the top right especially, it'd be easy. Yeah, right down the middle of the run, we've got the Kiwis and the Germans. 2 black spinnakers. We saw that those 2 black spinnakers around the windward mark first. Kiwis are still ahead, and that'll be Eric Heil, I believe, in the Germany boat. So the 2 of them, Kiwis have kept their lead, and it looks to me like they're clear ahead of the teams who straight set and jibe set. So probably a couple 100-meter lead here on everyone but the Germans. Coming into the leeward marks now. At this point, they'll just be looking for a clean exit, carry their speed through, probably a simple maneuver. The Germans, I'd guess, have a jibe to do still, but we'll see. Maybe still lumpy. You can see them jumping all over. Kiwis going for the drop now. Germans go for a jibe. We'll have a split on the first 2 at the bottom mark, because I'm sure the Germans will carry forward and go straight through at this point. Doesn't look like it, actually. Looks like they're right to the far side, so... Oh yeah, they're heading up. No, jibe drop. So the conditions, although they look pretty gnarly, are definitely fully within the range of these 49er sailors. We'll see, maybe the gate skewed and everyone's going to go. No, so third place comes to the close side of the gate. So interesting that the Germans decided to jibe set and follow the Kiwis. Could have been that they're trying to avoid the full back of boats coming downwind on starboard and just keep their air a little bit clearer. Can you tell what number that is in the British in third place? Okay, Brits round in third. Danes just coming to the near side here, that's 6. There's another team that's gone away from us. We can't quite work out who they are. And the middle of the pack, as you'd expect, very, very close. The middle 12 boats all rounding within seconds of each other. Looks like there are a few teams struggling with the condition. There are 3 teams currently back a good couple hundred meters. I imagine they might have all capsized during tacks or had trouble in the airways or something like that. Leaving 22 to battle up front here in the dying but still big breeze in Palma today. Yesterday was a funny day, or maybe not funny, but the girls, the FX team, went out first and did 3 races in increasing winds, and we're really pleased with how they fared last year in pretty similar conditions. It was survival at best, and quite often most of them had a lot of trouble even in that. And yesterday they were racing the whole way around. We saw the Danes, Ida Nilsson and Marie Olsen, clean up and take all 3 races, but they had to work for each one of them, making passes, especially on the downwinds with their really good boat handling and boat speed. And then the men got sent out, so they probably started around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And the first race, I think, had quite a few capsizes, but everyone, just about everyone got round. And then in the second race, it was carnage. Not a single boat made it around the course without capsizing. And yeah, the big smiles when they got back to shore for having survived the exercise. But the waves here in Palma are really quite a lot bigger than we're used to seeing in most of the venues. And 49er just struggles in the big swell and big waves. The bow volume just isn't there to keep it up, so the pit bowling is always an issue. Of course, got a lot of power in the sails to begin with, and it just gets wild. Looks like pretty spread beat here. Teams going right, teams going left. Our leaders are a little bit left of center, and I think that's where they came from in the first beat as well. So even though we suspect there might be slightly smaller waves to the far right, maybe the mountains are higher to the right, and there could be more disturbance and more blockage of the wind. So maybe the left side's got a little more wind, and that's why we're seeing teams head that way. But yeah, there are teams on both corners of this race course. There's 2 teams that haven't tacked at all yet. They just rounded that go left gate and are still going left. They're right out to the left corner. And then we see the Spanish, Diego Boughton and Pablo Torrado. They're to the very far right of the screen. If you want to pan all the way right, maybe you can spot them, Sam. Just past, for those of you with really keen eyes, you might make out the U.S. aircraft carrier Harry Truman in the background, but the Spanish, they just tacked now, so that's the farthest right boat that we've seen, and that's got to be 1.5 kilometers width from the guys who are still going left on the far left corner. So we definitely have no agreement on which way is best yet for the day. Since the folks at home can't really see much, Sam, why don't you pan really far right and really far left and show them some of the surf and the wash. Get an idea of the swell. If you go all the way to the beach to the right, people can see all the white water. We're standing on a 15 and 20 foot tall breakwall here, and we're a little bit worried that the waves might break over top of us, actually.
Getting that picture.
Same as last time. I'm just gonna can't see what's happening. So I gotta keep it pointed at first.
I've got a top bar. the change, Portuguese and New Zealanders are around the top mark.
Okay, so with the red spinnaker, that is the Portuguese team of Jorge Lima and Joe Costo. They have taken the lead from the New Zealanders, and they've split from them in this downwind. My guess is that the right's paid off because the Portuguese who have made the pass have come back this side of the course. So the right side of their screen, they obviously are betting on again. And not the Kiwis, though. The Kiwis are still heading back the similar direction they went last time. We'll see if they make an early jibe again like they did last time. Looks like the Germans are in third, so they've dropped one place back. So Portuguese have leapfrogged both first and second here. Portuguese with the red spinnaker coming back. You can already see that it's lighter than it was on the last downwind. The forecast for today is for the wind to continue to drop, and the boats aren't as lit up as they were in the first downwind. You can tell just by the profile of their spinnakers. So it'll be interesting to see how fast that the wind decreases. Teams that are able to adjust and get their settings right for each race and for each stage of the race will do well, surely. It's a 2-lap race, so this is the last downwind. When they come down for another 4 minutes or so, that'll be it. They'll go through the finish line, and that's the first of our 3 races on the day, to be followed up by 3 races of the 49er FX. Going to have a cross here of the 2 leaders, Portuguese and the red spinnaker, Kiwis to the far left of the screen with the black spinnaker. And to my eye, I'd say the Kiwis have done it. I'd say they've made the right call on this downwind. The Portuguese spinnaker with the red didn't look as lit up, didn't look as powered up as the Kiwis did straight setting. And now as we see them converge, we'll get a chance to see if that's true or not. But the black spinnaker on the far left, they look like they're on a really good angle, really low, pointing straight at those leeward marks almost. And the red spinnaker looks to me like it's pointed up high and behind the Kiwis by, won't be long now when we'll see the cross. For those of you keen on watching the racing, it is live in 2D and 3D GPS tracked. So go to the Princess Sofia website and you're able to link on to the live tracking. So the Portuguese jibed without crossing the Kiwis. My guess is they couldn't and have lost a spot, but they seem to me like they're in front of the other spinnakers, so still in second. I don't think it's the Portuguese. I think it might be the Danes. I just got the tracking going myself. Looks like it's Denmark 30, Jonas Warrer and Peter Lang in second place. They've been selling well all week. I think they're still in second overall. That's right, they're second overall coming into this race. So the race we're seeing before us is finishing in the same order as the overall standings. So no accident how these two have got in front. The Kiwis are on ley line for the finish line. We've got a pretty good battle here for second place, with the Danes and Germans and GBR all fighting for that second spot. Bit of a gust in from behind with the blue and black spinnakers sinking low of the red and orange spinnakers. It's the Danes in the red spinnaker, Jonas Warrer, Denmark 30. Behind them, it's Italy, 444. The horn in the background was the Kiwis winning that race. Italy 444 in third place. That's the Dabini brothers. Good race for them. Secure third spot. In fourth place, that's GBR4. That's Dylan Fletcher and Alan Stein. Just behind them, big losers in the second lap are the Germans, Eric Heil and Thomas Plosel, and trying to roll them right at the finish line of the Croatians. They've got a better angle to this leeward mark, but it does look to me like the Germans are going to hold on. I don't know about that. It's going to be really close. Yeah, and the Germans have fallen all the way back to 6th, so the Croatians did get in front of them, rolled them with about 300 meters left to go on the finish line. I think that's France 14, Mathieu Frey and Jan Rocheroux through the line. And then really tight battle here with half dozen boats. Pink spinnaker, that'll be James Peters and Ed Fitzgerald. Their fans will be delighting in the fact they chose the spinnaker color because it makes it easy for the rest of us to see who they are. That's GBR 114, just finishing at very similar times, along with Italy 26, Spain 900, GBR 98, Austria 192, Benjamin Bildstein. So all those guys came through right at the same time. And a good race here. A little bit long, 33 minutes now we're in. And we've still got a few of the back markers who struggled at times during the race to go through. Here comes the Portuguese now. So we mistakenly thought the Portuguese were the Danes for that downwind. So that's the Portuguese through there. Next in is that looks like the Nikos to me. Austria 84. They'll have been looking for a better result. They're fighting for that. They're fighting for the medal race position in about I think 8th before the day started. Finally, we got Julian Dortoli and Noé Delpech. So that's France 6 just going through now. The French team is using this regatta as a selector for who gets to go to the pre-Olympics this summer in Rio. And before today's racing, Mathieu Frey and Jan Rocheroux were locked almost dead even with Julian Dortoli and Noé Delpech. So a big separation in that race there will leave little opportunity for Mathieu and Jan to maybe secure their spot in the medal race. Those two are on 10th and 11th overall before this race, and they finished about 10 spaces apart. So the advantage to Mathieu and Jan. Also a disappointing race for Nico and Nico. They're 6th overall right now, and 17, no, a good 30 points up on 10th place. So they can afford to have that race and still make the medal race, but they don't want to hold too many more of those, as anything can happen in a final. Diego Boughton and Pablo Torrado have been the surprise racers of the regatta. They were leading after the first couple days and sailed a really nice gold fleet so far. Finished mid-pack in that race. and they're looking to make their first medal race appearance at a World Cup. Anyways, that's it. Belgium through there. That's the last of our racers, and that's the end of race 12 of the regatta, race 1 of our day. We'll just put down the microphone here for a few minutes and pick it up as we get started. Should be less than 10 minutes to go till the next race start. bugging the mic.
That mic too bad.
Less than a minute to go here. Race 13 of the 2014 Palma World Cup of Sailing. This is the 49er class Gold Fleet. This is the second race of the day. We've got a decaying wind, probably down to no more than 12 knots at this stage, maybe even less, maybe 10 knots, with a lot of leftover chop and swell. So it's going to be challenging conditions for the sailors to get their boats to perform with different amounts of pressure at the top and bottom of these quite large swells left over from the storm we've had over the last 48 hours. The teams that are able to make the adjustments and get the power in their sails right and their weight movement right, especially as they balance fore and aft movement, lateral movement to keep their sails charging us at a good efficiency all the way around this course, will be the ones that are able to succeed here. In the last race, we saw pretty much what we've seen all week with Peter Burling and Blair Tuke from New Zealand take the win and extend their lead at the top of the table. We also saw the Danes Jonas Warrer and Peter Lang have another solid race. That's the start. Can you see the number on that boat closest to us? Looks like the Austrians to me. There's two Austrian teams, Bildstein. I think that is Bildstein actually, with his yellow sponsor sticker. Austria 192. Coming off the boat end. Couple teams ducking and having to go right early, already behind. We did see teams do well on the right side of the course, so it might not be the worst tactic in the world to have to go right, but always better if you plan it than if you're forced. We see a Danish boat here, struggling just underneath a few boats going right, having to tack again, so that's already their second tack of the race. Portuguese going underneath them, that's Jorge Lima and Jose Costa. Just a really tough amount of light here to actually see what's going on. Hopefully it's a little better on your screens than it is for me. Looks to me like center of screen is Dylan Fletcher and Alan Sign, GBR4, if it is them. See, the boats are really down on speed compared to that first race. Not off to a great start. That's the Spanish, Diego Boughton. Leaders early on in this championship, struggling in the second row already, and just behind them, I see the Portuguese making their third tack of the race. Never a good sign if you're having to tack that often to start a race. Looks to me like it's France 6 making the charge right as well. They had a poor first race and are in a battle with teammates for a spot at the pre-Olympics this year. So Julian Dortoli will be looking for a little magic on this right side to keep in the running for that. He was 11th placed overnight in the standings, with only the top 10 making it through to the finals tomorrow. They flip back over. They do look like they're on a good angle now, so could have picked up a shift there. And Diego Boughton just tacked underneath him, and so did Jorge Lima. So the three teams that have gone farthest right have all flipped back left at the same time and do look like they're in some decent pressure. So maybe Maybe they'll be able to rescue something from their poor starts. So that wasn't GBR4, I was mistaken. Russia 281, GBR10, John Pink, GBR4, Dylan Fletcher, Finn 49, Lowry Lettinen are all the farthest left boats making a charge out on holding their lanes to the far left side of the course. It all still looks relatively even up this beat. There must be some shifts and puffs that teams are able to take to balance out their positions. We now see the Russians had to tack back from the far left side and had to take a lot of sterns, so not a great position for them. However, the Belgians have been able to make the left work a little bit. Lowry Lettinen, Finland 49, he's now tacked back onto port, and as well as taking some transoms. It looks to me like the teams who are doing well are France 14, Matthew Frey and Jan Rocheroux. They look to be leading the pack out left. James Peters having a good race. Jonas Ward, Denmark 30, having a good race. And the Kiwis and Croatian. So that was basically the top 5 from last race. New Zealand 1, Croatia 13, GBR 999, and Denmark 30. They're all having good races again, so they're doing well in these tricky conditions to keep the boat moving. Teams are just converging on that top mark now. Still looking good for New Zealand, who have come from middle right in control of the fleet as they all progress together. Belgium, 777, having a good race. They just ducked the Kiwis middle of the course. And Dylan Fletcher also has made a mini comeback. He actually is pulled even with the Kiwis. Sweden 16 coming in from the right side of the course. They're right in the front row as well. That's Russia 281 at the far right of your screen. They started as the pin moat, went all the way left, tacked early, and have now progressed quite far right into a reasonable position. They're not the leaders necessarily, but just maybe in the top 10 now, which is a good comeback considering when they first tacked, they probably ducked every single boat. So if they're able to capitalize on what seems to be a breezier right side of the course right now, that could do well. Team that looked like they were doing well initially, Denmark 30 along with GBR 999, they've headed to the far left, and it seems to be a little down pressure there, so looks doubtful to me that that'll pan out. Right now the team's in the middle of the course. There's a middle pack led by the Belgians and the Kiwis heading back on port along with Dylan Fletcher, Lowry Lettinen, the Nikos, Austria 84, and Matthew Frey. That's the leading pack right now. Middle of the screen, going on starboard. Sorry, going on port as they approach final approach to this windward mark. So even though the teams who are now right of the course seem to have surged ahead, probably due to some pressure, the wind's also bent left, meaning that they've had to extend how far they've gone in order to tack back on starboard. So there could be some opportunities for the teams that are left of them to get in there at the mark if it continues even farther left. We can see most of them have tacked back now on their ley line to get to that windward mark. Right, first team's going around the windward mark now. It's a bright pink spinnaker, so I'm going to guess that's James Peters, Eds Fitzgerald, GBR 999, and I'm also going to guess that's the Kiwis in second. But we will get confirmation of that shortly. Matthew Frey and Jan Rochereau from France in the mix as well, along with Dylan Fletcher of Team GBR and Lauri Lehtinen of Finland. Looks like they're in some good pressure right now. And as we discussed, that left shift on the course has meant they're all straight setting. Taking the long jibe first as they look to stretch out their lead on the teams further back. So, just getting confirmation now from the live tracking. I believe in first place that's Matthew Frey and Jan Rochereau from France. Not James Peters like I originally thought. Oh no, sorry, I'm mistaken. It is James Peters. His tracker just got lost. So James Peters followed by Matthew Frey, France 14, followed by Jonas Warrer, Denmark 30. James Peters now just center screen, jibing back to the center of course. In fourth place is John Pink, GBR 10. That's the blue spinnaker. And in fifth place, Benjamin Bildstein, black spinnaker, Austria 192. Sixth place, Croatia 13, Kostov. Next is the Nikos, Austria 84, followed by GBR 114 and France 114. Then Dave Evans, then the Kiwis, then Eric Heil, followed by the Italians 140, Lauri Lehtinen, and then Dylan Fletcher, GBR 4. So the left side did pay at the top of that beat. The teams that were looking good in pressure got lifted and weren't able to capitalize on the opportunity that presented themselves. The teams that held out on the left, it worked out for them, and that's why we're seeing Warrer and Pinky get back in the mix. Matthew Frey and Jan Rochereau, they were left of the group that went across the middle early, and that's how they were able to, along with James Peters. So James Peters jibed earlier than the rest of the bunch. He's in the pink spinnaker, and the rest of the boats he was leading continued out to the outside of him. So he's got clean air and water as he charges across the middle of the course towards these downwind gates. Just in the foreground, we can see a 470 limping home, minus a mainsail. Hopefully they're okay. Their mast is still in the air, so should be fine. Just focusing in on the battle between Denmark 30 and France 14, with the French having the black spinnaker still carrying their lead. Denmark 30 with the red spinnaker. And John Pink to the right of the screen with the blue spinnaker. So that was places 2nd through 4. In the pink spinnaker, just if you pan right, James, you'll see what was the leader, or still could be the leader, James Peters, coming across. So this is the battle for the lead we're following. Looks quite close. We'll be able to tell momentarily here whether James Peters' early jibe has paid off for him or whether some people have managed to go around him. We can see his teammate, John Pink, jibing behind him, but on a similar line. So he could be on ley line for the leeward mark. And as they come at these downwind gates, so there's the French having to jibe. They were on port, so they jibe right on top of James Peters. Let's see if he's got the momentum to see it through. He does go through, and goes outside the French. So the French have made a pass there right at the gate. James Peters had to go around the outside, or have they come towards us? No, I think that's Jonas War coming towards us. Terrible light today. Really tight for the top 5 as we come into this leeward mark. No, so that's John Pink coming towards us. GBR 10. The other leaders have gone to the far gate and are going away from us. Looks like Matthew Frey, followed by... Well, maybe this is James Peters now on the close side. GBR 999. Maybe the people on YouTube can see it better than I can. John Pink is GBR 10. As the teams sort themselves through this leeward mark, still very close. And with so little set by what side's favored upwind, we won't know. The teams will be looking to the teams in the lead will be looking to consolidate, but there'll be loads of opportunities for others to pass. Going right here, we have Austria. Looked to me like an 84, so I'm going to assume that that is the Nikos. No, that's... I think that just going right of screen, that might be Bildstein with the yellow sponsor at the bottom. Looks like most of the teams are going out to seed this this leg. A lot more teams going left than right. We saw a very broad group of strategies in the first beat, with many teams going to either side. Now it's just only a few teams farther back playing the right side of the course. So either they figure they're lifted and they're hoping for another left shift like we saw at the top of the last beat, or they think there's some more breeze out that way. The mountains upwind of us, or the land upwind of us, is definitely a lot lower on the left side of the course than the right. The mountains to the right, quite high, a couple thousand feet, or maybe 1,000 meters or so. To the left, there's a number of valleys that go down almost to sea level. So it could be that the wind is funneling through those mountains and pushing a little extra wind to the left side of our course. Just following the overall leaderboard, we've got the Kiwis, who are probably halfway. They're halfway back right now, probably in about 12th or 15th position, locked right in step with the Germans, who are just beside them. Obviously, Jonas Warrer looking to claw back some of that distance to the Kiwis. He's out in front of this, out in front of this race in the top 5, with an opportunity to pick up even more. Dave Evans, 3rd overall coming into the day, had a poor race to start the day, and he is also right in that same group of boats with the Germans and the Kiwis, along with Lauri Letten and Finland 49. They're all mid-pack, fighting in that 8 through 16 group, which is always the toughest spot to be on the race course. Lots to play for there. Just spotted Dylan Fletcher. He's also in the middle of the pack. So places 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's the Kiwis, Dave Evans, Pablo Torrado, Dylan Fletcher, and the Nikos. They're all in the middle group from about 8th place through to 16th place right now. Often 49ers will say that's where the regattas are won and lost. Whether you can move to the front of those groups or whether you get shuffled to the back, that's where the big point gains are made. A lot of these teams are able to get out front and hold their leads, but it's in the fights, in the midst of the packs, where that bit of extra skill and boat speed pays off. And we're going to see now which of those teams is able to gain a few points on their immediate rivals. Meanwhile, the leaders of this race all went left. John Pink did go around the close mark to us, but then quickly tacked back over and proceeded to the left side. So that's James Peters, Matthew Frey, John Pink, Pavel Kostov, Croatia, and Jonas Warrer, Denmark 30. They're all coming back across, roughly even with each other. They're on port, but on the left side of the course, crossing back to the right side of the course where they need to get to the windward mark. If you can just pan to the left, Sam, and pick up that far left group, or the middle of the pack left group, that's those are the leading bunch, right about there, yeah. Obviously, they're a little bit farther in the distance, so it's a little bit harder for a cameraman to pick them up. But that's where the battle for the race lead is. Jonas Wurr is the right of those 5 boats. So as I was calling them out momentarily earlier, I was talking of the group left to right. So Jonas Wurr is leading this leading group to the right side of the course. So he is he's the one who's able to dictate most of what they have to do. They each have a lane, other than James Peters, who looks to me like he's getting pinched out a little bit by the French team of Matthew Frey. So he may struggle with a long starboard port tack to do, and 4 boats underneath him. If he isn't able to hold his lane and has to do 2 tacks, that'll probably cost him the lead, which he held into the leeward marks. Blue spinnaker up. Gonna make a guess that's John Pink. Could be the Croatians. Black spinnaker. Another black spinnaker. I'm looking, there's James Peters. I'm looking for the red spinnaker of Jonas Wurr, to be honest, which is who I expected to go around first. But his GPS tracker is showing him drifting around. And now we don't see the red spinnaker. So I don't know what's happened to Jonas Wurr here. We'll just wait for the GPS picture to catch up, but I do believe that's John Pink in the lead, followed by the Croatians and the French, and then in 4th place, James Peters. The mystery here is what happened to Jonas Wurr, who was leading that group until 80% of the way up the beat, and we'll see if he's managed to recapture something and get in the group. We do see a red spinnaker, and it looks like he's back working again on the tracker. So just a real pause in the race for Jonas Wurr. We'll have to ask him later in the race what happened there. The leaders continue on starboard tack, downwind, with the blue spinnaker of John Pink in the lead. John Pink. Second place is the French, and 3rd place is the Croatians. Finally worked out which was which of those 2. So French, Matthew Frey and Jan Rochereau winning the day so far today if they are able to secure this finish. This is our last lap of a 2-lap race. So as they head down to the finish line, that'll be it for the race. As the sun comes out and warms us up a little bit, no doubt the sailors will be happy with that. As is your commentary team, if it allows us to see a little more of these sail numbers. James Peters coming across early again. He did that in the first lap and was able to keep his lead. At this point in the race, though, he's the 4th of a pack of 4, so no harm in splitting and taking a slightly more aggressive attitude. The boats that he's splitting from, the leaders, have continued on starboard. We see John Pink go for his jibe now. Immediately, or simultaneous jibes from the French and Croatians. French are the middle of the pack of 3 boats there. Croatians now have the high lane of these 3. Each of them has a fair bit of space, though, so it should be relatively comfortable. According to the GPS, that is Jonas Warrer, Denmark 30 in 5th place. Looked earlier in the race like he was going to take the lead, and then his tracker showed him drifting sideways for a good while, and now it seems like he's finally got back up to pace, but I don't know how he lost the leaders and lost a few hundred meters in the process. In 6th place, we've got Benjamin Bildstein, Austria 192. 7th place, Germany 12, Eric Heil. Dave Evans has done nicely to move up into 8th. France 144. Then Austria 84, the Nicos. Then our leaders, the Kiwis, New Zealand 1, followed by the Portuguese, the Swedes, and GBR 114, and Dylan Fletcher. So Dylan Fletcher losing out on a few more points there. The big story, though, is really Jonas Warrer, unable to keep those 5 points we thought he might get by winning this race. So now he'll only have a 5-point gain on the Kiwis, assuming the Kiwis hold through. Everything looks pretty secure now for John Pink. You can see the boats are moving a lot slower now than they were in the first lap, or in the first race of the day. There's the French. Jibed again, middle of the course. I wonder if they were getting rolled by the Croatians. My guess is they were, and they had to jibe away. So the Croatians took the high line and did jibe a fraction of a second or two earlier than the French on their simultaneous jibes. Looking quite light now as the teams try and come in for the finish. We, earlier in the day, about 9 a.m., it was 28 knots, and there was a real fear that we wouldn't get any racing in today. But the forecast has called for it to get lighter. We've just seen the sun break through, and now we've seen the wind really get light. The waves and swell are still quite large. You can see the rigs shuffling around as we see John Pink go for his final jibe through to get to the finish line. And the Croatians jibe at the same time behind them. So we should see a pretty good battle here between the 2 black spinnakers of the Croatians in the foreground and the French in the background. Croatians are now on starboard. That means they've got right away over the French, and it looks to me like they're crossing. So they've managed to go from 3rd to 2nd on this last downwind, just coming through the French line right there. We hear the finish horn go for John Pink, securing the victory. Through in 2nd place are the Croatians. 3rd place are the French, Mathieu Frey. And then we've got tight battle here with Jonas Warrer and James Peters. Doubtful we'll be able to tell. Oh, looks like James Peters lost by doing that early jibe. I'd say from here it certainly looks like Jonas Warrer managed to move up into 4th. With James Peters in 5th. In 6th, that's Benjamin Bildstein of Austria. Bit of a light air specialist. At the Worlds last year, we saw him rocket into the top group based on his light air sailing skills. Earlier this week, we saw that, and now that the wind's backed off a little bit again here today, we see that again. Coming into the finish line, that's a British boat, I think. So Nick Asher, I think that's Nick Asher, followed by Thomas Plosel, Germany. Looks like the Nicos, Austria, are in a battle here with, who is the other country? Can't tell, but the Nicos lost another spot to the finish line, and then here comes the Kiwis, the overall leaders. Black Spinnaker just coming into the finish line now. Just behind them is, if I had to guess, it'll be Dylan Fletcher. Swedes are in there. Dave Evans, sorry. Dave Evans. So that was Dave Evans earlier. Portuguese through the line. So the real followed in that race are, we see the French, Julian Dortoli coming through the line now. That's two poor races in a row for him, and he was in 11th to start the day. Be very tough for him to make the finals tomorrow with only the top 10 going through. Dylan Fletcher will likely be kicking himself as well. Neither of the races today have been great for him. We're also looking for Pablo Torrado, which is he's just coming through the finish line now. So our regatta leader for the first 2 days, in tough again today. He does have a significant gap to the medal race coming into the day of almost 40 points. But with teams like Heil and Plosel having good days, along with Matthew Frey and Jan Rocheroux, there's also an outside chance here for James. We've seen James Peters feature in both the races so far. He needs to pass 2 boats to get into the top 10. The team's most likely to be passed based on how things are going. The Swedes, haven't seen them feature too much in the racing yet today. They were mid-pack this race. Just trying to look down to see. Yeah, so James Peters, one more race. James Peters, Ed Fitzgerald. That's why I'm getting confused. They're not sailing with 999 anymore. They're sailing with 25. They're my pick to oust one of these top 10 guys and get a spot in the final. They'll need one more good race here to do that. As we see the Belgians come through, and then the Russians, and in last place the other French. So should be another 10 minutes or so till the last race of the day. Race 14 it will be, and we'll be back with you. Welcome back, sailing fans. This is the 2014 ISAF Palma World Cup of Sailing, and this is the 49er Gold Fleet, race 14, last race of the series. There is 1 minute to go to the start of this last race. Right now, the flag just went up, and we've got a pretty good battle here. The day started out overcast and over 28 knots of wind with huge swell. Since then, we've seen the storm pass, the wind decrease significantly. Yeah. 20 seconds to go to this last race of the series. Peter Burling and Blair Tuke of Team New Zealand are in the lead, and quite firmly so. They've got about a 20-point gap to second place. 4, 3, 2, 1, and they're off. So let's go. We see number teams get off the line safely. The race committees have been using this U flag, which means if you're over early, you don't get a chance to go back. So kind of like a black flag, except if there is a general recall, you still get to continue trying on the next start. Seems like it's been a pretty successful trial. We have hardly had any general recalls this week, which is a nice sigh of relief for all the fleet to get to start when they want, and the race committees not to waste any time. Coming to the right, we've got the Russians, 281. But we're really looking for our leaders. So as I was saying earlier, what's really up for grabs here is a spot in the medal race, the final day, because everyone else finishes sailing after today. And there's a few teams on the bubble. The Swedes, Carl Sylvan, he's got a chance. Julian Dortoli of France, he's got a chance. James Peters from the UK, he's got a chance. And it's really going to be up to this race for the teams to see who gets to go. Making a medal race is always a bit of a badge of honor, and as only the top 10 get to go, so quite a prize that they're searching for. Looks like we're going to have to try and do this without any GPS tracking right now, so it'll be a little more difficult to work out who's who, but at least we have a little light so we can see the sails. So far, one of the performances of the day has been Jonas Warrer of Denmark, and the other I'd say is James Peters of Team GBR. Both of them have had top fives each race, and as each aim for different goals here. Jonas Warrer to put some pressure on the Kiwis so he can still claim the title. James Peters to put some pressure on those teams in the top of the stand, or in the 9th and 10th position, so he can get a place in the medal race. Let's see if we can spot either of them on the course. Most of the teams heading out to the left. We saw that pay off in the second race of the day, especially, as looked like the teams from the right were going to get the advantage, and then they right at the last few hundred meters, or the last 500 meters, there was quite a strong left shift, and the teams from the left who played the shift right were able to maintain their good positions out the starting blocks. The race length has been shortened quite a bit as well. Probably in the foreground of your screen you can see a number of Finns heading out to the race course. They're going behind our race course, but there are over 100 of them, so they'll continue to block the visuals to our race, but the guys are mostly heading out on port here. I think we just can see a British boat along with Germany's Eric Heil, and I'd be guessing, but I think that's a Swedish boat coming back. And New Zealand, is it? Okay, so that's the Kiwis with the Germans just taking a few transoms to get back, but getting back centered in the course. And a number of the other boats do the same. So the teams that held the lane off the start line from the boat end seem to have been in the first leading position, as all the other teams from farther left tack and duck them. Either the course is quite a bit shorter, or the teams have found a shift, because a lot of them are tacking back left or back onto port at the same time. We can see the windward mark is a lot lower down than it was for either of the first two races, as this wind speed has dropped, but also it could have been a shift. Sorry, I was just looking for the GPS tracking to see if that was online, but it's not yet. Hoping to bring you a little more accurate information than my guesses of which boat is which, but we'll do our best from this distance. With the windward mark not as far away, we should be able to pick up on things a little quicker than we have been in the last two races. Every single boat in the fleet's on port right now, except for maybe one or two. So if we can guess from that the wind's come in from the left again, and teams are trying to take that pressure and that good angle to their advantage. We've mentioned a number of times, maybe you can get a better image of them now, that the mountains are higher to the right of the course than to the left. We are a number of miles downwind of those mountains, so it might not be making the difference, or maybe it is, as we've seen the left side seem to be favored. As these fins continue to pile past our race course, and we can also now see 49er FX coming out, so they've obviously been sent. We've got 3 49er FX races scheduled after these 3 49er races. Teams are up on that starboard ley line now. Final approach to the windward mark. The race hasn't been running that long, So we can see just how close that fleet is as they all stack up on each other. There's the first boat around the mark now. Black spinnaker going up. Doesn't give us much of a hint. There's quite a few of them there. Maybe Mike. Say again? Russians? Russian second, okay. They were going right initially. Kiwis fifth, okay. The one. Sixth, okay. Is that the ones that jibe set? Okay, so we're seeing the Kiwis jibe set. We also think the Russians might have come from the right side. James Peters is one of those two pink spinnakers, having another good race. He's been one of the star performers of the day. That's our first red spinnaker in about 10th, so that'll possibly be Jonas Warrer. Black spinnakers don't give us much hint. You can see just how many of them there are in this fleet. Dylan Fletcher could be rocking that light blue spinnaker, middle of the screen. Hopefully we'll be able to pick out a few of these sails as they get to the leeward mark. But only a couple jibe setters. New Zealanders, Burling and Tuke, one of them we think. The first of this pack on the right. With most of the leaders heading straight setting, probably coming from the left side of the course, but there's obviously some interest in the right side of the course. Probably the thing viewers can see most is all these fin boats that are just continuing to go out of the harbor, out to their course, which is a couple miles off to the left. Not a lot of room in the middle of the course on a 49er, or there's lots of room, I should say, as everyone plays for the edges. No half measures. The guys in the lead go right to the corner. The guys who jibe set going right to the other corner. And our leaders have jibed onto port, as have a few of the boats just behind them. Okay, so on the right side here we can see Burling and Tuke have jibed back to the middle, as have the Germans, Eric Heil and Thomas Plosel. So both of them playing the right side downwind. Visually, there's nothing to distinguish the right side from the left side of the course right now. The waves, while still large, the viciousness is definitely out of them, as it's mostly just a residual swell. It does look to me like the boats who are on the left side of the course are a little more lit up than the ones on the right, but with them being on different jibes, it's hard to tell. Okay, those of you following along at home, this race has just been loaded onto the GPS tracker, so we'll be able to get you some better data in the next few minutes on who's who. Actually, all these boats, all the fins are now stopping and waiting and watching, so it's going to interfere with our visuals even more than it already was. See if you can zoom in on those guys as they round the leeward marks and just call out sail countries. Who's that in the lead? Danish in the lead?
Yeah, and Russian.
Danish and Russians, okay. Swedish, that makes sense. Okay, so that's Carl Sylvan in the lead. That's good for him. That'll really help him maintain.
Russian, Danish, English.
Okay, so then we're getting called for Danish in third, then English or British rather in fourth. That's Finnish in fourth. That's Lauri Lehtinen coming to the close side. And then we see the New Zealanders. So they didn't gain or lose much by their jibe set. Rounded the top mark in about 6th, and I think they're still in 6th. Bit of a mess in the middle of the fleet with the 2 pink spinnakers in the light blue. See if you can pick out the sail number from that light blue spinnaker, Sam. One of those pink spinnakers was James Peters. So he's about 10th, I'd say. We're also looking for the French teams, if we can find them. There's the Belgians, 777. Yannick Lefebvre, just coming to the close side here. Very close racing. The Finn, Lauri Lettinen, he's held his port rounding and is going a little bit to the right side of the course. And of course, just as I say that, he tacks right. I don't know if just to the right of our camera. So most of the leaders have continued left, with Lowry in the high lane chasing them over there. He'll be biding his time on the second beat. It's just about the last of our Finns to be blocking our visuals, but we do see a lot of the 49er FX fleet coming out. Sam, if you can just pan over to this New Zealand Red Bull branded FX here, we'll just take a look at them. And it's so far away to see our fleet racing. I'll just pan over to another story we've got for the day. Great looking boat there. That's the Red Bull sponsored 49er FX team of Alex Maloney and Molly Meach, world champions from Marseille in 2013. They secured the Red Bull sponsorship through the winter and stayed home. They had a number of visitors to come and sail with them through the winter. As you can see, they're 1.5 trapping. Well, they're double trapping, both with bent legs. So you can judge by that just how much power there is. It's probably about 8-9 knots. They're extending on when they're in the peaks and then having to crouch in the troughs of the waves. Very challenging conditions to sail in. Good luck to them. A good day today. Could see them bounce up into the medal race, but it hasn't been the greatest of weeks. As we go back to the racing, can you get to that first 49er with the GBR flag? Any chance you can pick out that number?
Two numbers,
19 or a 10?
10, I think.
If it's a 10, that's John Pink. Just tacking, yeah. And behind them, that looks like a Croatian flag to me. So Croatians having another good day. Now these boats aren't the leading group, the Pink and the Croatians. The leaders all have gone pretty far left on this beat, like we think they did on the first beat as well. I'll just put this mic down and see if I can get some GPS data to help us out.
Swedish out there. Swedish in the middle of the screen.
Okay, we do have the GPS data up now. So we've got the Swedish team in the middle of the screen, and they are the leaders, along with the Russians. The two of those boats being shown as in the lead. The Russians are farther left on the screen. And they're coming up to the British and the Croatians. That wasn't Pinky, that was actually Dave Evans that we were looking at earlier, tacking and coming back across. So they've caught up a bit, but it is the Swedish in the lead. Just in the background, in the foreground, that looks like Italy 444, who are back in about 12th position, 15th position. Just clicking over to our predictive rankings. The predictive rankings right now show a very tight battle to make this medal race, with the Swedish in 9th place with 136 points. France 6, Julian Dortoli in 10th place on 137 points, just one more than the Swedes. And then James Peters in 11th place on 140 points. So right now it's only a 4-point spread between 9th place and 11th place. Only 2 of those 3 boats will get to make it into the final tomorrow. And in this race right now, each of those boats has lots of opportunity to gain. Julien, France 6, is in 13th place. Well, the Swedes, they're in first, so they can't afford to drop back much at all. And James Peters is in 15th place. So between those 3 boats, one of them is going to leave unhappy today. And that's a pretty big prize to fight for. You wonder just how aware they are of the points. Only 4 points in it, and it's easy to gain and lose them in this type of racing, especially with it being so light now. We see the Swedes do have quite a good lead right now, crossing well ahead of Croatia, who looks to have made a good move into about 2nd or 3rd place. Kiwis just getting a lift, and I think actually they're in 2nd with Croatia in 3rd. And the Russian, looks like the Kiwis are just they're on the same tack as the Russians, and they're just getting a little bit more boat speed and able to pinch them off. Probably really difficult for our viewers at home to see this. We've got a load of FX boats warming up for their race that starts in about 15 minutes, so very difficult for our camera people here to zoom in on the right racers, but we'll try and bring you the right messages. All right, Sam, why don't you zoom in on this Danish boat in the foreground here, the number 49, the Schutt sisters. Right here? Yeah. No. Well, sure, go to the right. We can see, no, I was looking, but we can see these ones. So as we struggle for 49er images, we've got Jenna Hansen and Katja Iversen, Denmark 136, and Jenna's actually our 49er vice president, so she's doing a lot of good things for the class. But you can see, and now we'll just pan back to the Germans. That's Vicky Jersock and Annika Lorenz, and you can see these girls going through this swell. It's no doubt nerve-wracking as they get out of the break wall here and it starts to break. Again, both teams 1.5 trapping, struggling, looking for pressure as they warm up for these 49er FX races that'll start soon after the men's race finishes. That Finnish boat was Silja Kaverna and Sinem Kurtby on the helm. Silja is a bronze medalist from the 2012 London Olympics in the match racing, made the transition back to skiffs. And the two of them are doing very well. Probably just approaching our windward mark now. Looks like the Swedes have lost out to GBR, I think that's 4, Dylan Fletcher, coming in from the left side of the course. He's picked off one point from the Swedes and is in the lead. I think the Swedes are going to be second, though, in a really tight mark rounding with a number of boats. Italy 26 in second. John Pink, GBR 10 in third, right with the Swedes in fourth. So if we move over to our predictive rankings and take a look at that, let's... well, they haven't updated anything yet. Now they have. So now we've got France. The points have been condensed even more. It's only 2 points now between the Swedes and James Peters. We'll see if we can find James Peters on the race course now, as these boats really struggling for power now. Earlier in the day, we saw them at the other end of the scale, right to the max of their wind limits, and now we see them really desperate for power to the point where it might even be tricky to get through. You never know how much the wind will disappear. Fourth place, Sweden 16. Fifth place is the New Zealanders, Peter Burling and Blair Tuke. Sixth place, David Evans, Ed Powes. Grew up going to high school with our cameraman here, Sam Workmeister. France 144 in what is that, 7th place, followed by the Russians in 8th. Good race for them. Jonas Warrer, Denmark 30s, coming around in 9th, followed by the Portuguese in 10th. Still looking to try and find our two boats who are, well, unfortunately for James Peters, I can see him in the standings here. He's slipping backwards in the fleet, as have the Swedes. Still 4 points back, as both the Swedes and James Peters aren't having great races. Julian Dortoli is the third boat in the mix, and he's also just rounding the windward mark. So pretty tight battle here just to make the medal race. Does look like it's going to be a bit of a runaway victory here for Burling and Tuke. They've got a 17-point lead going into this race. They're a few boats ahead. So it looks like they'll have a 20 to 22 point lead going into tomorrow's racing, with 27 points up for grabs. Almost impossible for them to lose unless they don't show up, and we fully expect them to show up. Not a lot of doubt on the strategy anymore. Throughout the day, we've seen teams try and play the right side of the course, but not anymore. Everyone's straight setting, hoping to get enough wind to get through the finish line here. Dylan Fletcher and Alan Sine will be very comfortable in this wind pressure. Happy in their placing. Second place is Italy 26. That's Rugi Tita. Rugi had a chance to win the Youth Worlds, or Junior Worlds, a few years back in Garda, and finished in the top 5 in that competition for juniors. John Pink having another solid race today, and we still see the Swedes in 4th. Looking very solid there. some of the teams starting to jibe back and cross the fleet, but only about 4, leaving the other 20 on starboard, still going straight. That'll mean they're relatively far leveraged, but it does look like the wind has shifted left. We see our leader. Are you with the leaders now, Sam? We see our leader just going for a jibe now as he heads for home. Second place matches, third place matches. So everyone flipping over, deciding it's time to head back to the center of the course. I think that's the New Zealanders just heading a little longer on starboard. No, that's the Swedes. The Swedes with the black spinnaker are bucking the trend of everyone jibing. They're digging farther into the left corner. Now let's just take a little look farther back in the fleet to see. Oh, New Zealanders are one of the teams that's come back early, actually, so not a great race for them. Oh, no, they saved it, but is that our leaders? I think that is our leaders just deciding that jibing back early isn't the right call. So Dylan Fletcher and Alan Syne, bit of a misstep in their jibe, but they did rescue it. And they're now chasing the Swedes, who do look good. Farthest left, are you on the left boats? So Dylan Fletcher hoped he could just dictate to the front group and have them all come back early and take no risk, but the Swedes have called him on it and continued out. And he's just felt he had to go back and cover them. Swedes now have come back, and Dylan is safely across in front of them. So he won't get past, but a couple hairy moments there as he didn't quite get his jibe the way he wanted. With so much at stake here for the guys trying to make the medal race, and the wind collapsing as it has to next to nothing. Well, it's better than next to nothing. They're still moving along, but we can see some teams with different amounts of pressure in their spinnakers at different times. The German's way on the right. That's an FX. It's going to be a little bit tricky for us to navigate this. We've got about a dozen 49er FXs in the foreground, some of them with their spinnakers up as well. So do excuse that. Desperately light as we get towards this finish line here. The Swedes have gained quite a lot on Dylan and Alan, so Dylan and Alan are in a better tactical position, but they're under pressure now from the Italians. And John Pink is on the top of all 4 of those, so still quite a few place changes possible as this race goes right to the finish line here. The Italians, Ruggi, looks like he's might be pressuring for the lead here. Very difficult to see with our imagery, because these 49er FXs are in the way. But he has been able to take some pressure down over top of Dylan Fletcher, over top of the Swedes. And that's the line that those 3 boats are in right now as they charge towards this finish line. Charge being an exaggeration. Dylan's been under pressure from the Swedes as they've become very aggressive and trying to pass him. So he's had to throw in 2 extra jibes this downwind and now fights to hold his lane. The Russians are making a comeback. Obviously, they've got some good downwind speed. And then the final boat in the picture is John Pink.
That looks like the New Zealanders crossing.
It does look like the New Zealanders, visually. It is the New Zealanders. So the New Zealanders jibed early. They were the first to jibe of the main group and have found some magic on the close side to take the win. Yet another win for those two. So they must have passed half a dozen boats on that downwind. Amazing sailing from those two. It now looks like John Pink has made a move, and it's the Italians, Pink and Fletcher, all coming into the finish line here. Looks to me like the Italians, or possibly John Pink, will be across first of those two, with Dylan Fletcher getting shuffled out a little bit. And even more so, it's the Swedes getting shuffled. The Russians are now in the mix as they all pile through the finish line. Looks to me like the Swedes have lost about 5 boats all at the end of this leg here, which could be bad news for them as they try and make the medal race. Top 10 only, and they didn't have much in it. Fortunately for them, it seems like James Peters has moved backwards in this race at the same time. So my predictive scoring is showing that the Swedes will make it. If James Peters can move up just at the end of this race, he's still got a chance, but he'll have to pass a number of boats. Looks to me like both the Swedes and Julian Dortoli of France will make the medal race, and it'll be James Peters who doesn't of those 3. Really just a mess of boats in our film, I imagine. Doesn't bode well, actually, for the 49er FX racing this afternoon. It's expected to continue to die, as we've seen it die all day. Tomorrow's racing will consist of 3 theater-style races, each 10 minutes long, each single points, and that should be a nice intense bout of sailing right off the shore here, with just the top 10 boats from both the men's fleet and the women's fleet. We can see, just zoom in on the New Zealanders here as they get towed in by their coach with a successful day under their belts yet again. I'll just check the scoring again and see what kind of lead they're going to take into this final day. Looks to me like they've got a 21-point lead. Jonas Warrer, I think, came 5th in that race. So a 21-point lead going into the final day with 27 points up for grabs. That means they need to finish ahead of, my math on the fly here, ahead of about 4 boats at any point in the 3 races tomorrow. 4 boats total, that is, to secure the victory, something that they've been able to do pretty well so far. So just trying to chase the race leaders there, getting towed in by their coach. And another good day sailing for them. They look pretty chilled out there, navigating these pretty big swell. You can probably see the swell on camera now as it builds up as they head in towards shore. This is John Pink. He's sailing with Stu Bithell now, former 470 gold medalist. World champion. And they had a great second and third races on the day, moving them up the standings. They're sitting in 6th overall, so we'll get to see them tomorrow for some of the racing. Then if we pan back to GBR 4, Sam, just a little farther left. That's Dylan Fletcher and Alan Sine. They're sitting 3rd overall right now with 20 points to move up and 10 points down. So not that much to shoot for with them in tomorrow's racing, but they've certainly been looking to get on the podium at these World Cups as much as they can, and it looks like they'll be able to. Behind them are their racing Silverline teammates, Dave Evans and Ed Powess, GBR 98. Dave and Ed will also be in tomorrow's racing, 7th overall, and they're going to have a pretty good battle with Pablo Torrado, Nico Delacarth, and John Pink. All those teams are only 4 points apart from each other in 4th through 7th. Behind them are our Croatian team, Pavel Kozdov and Peter Kupak. We won't be able to see them in the medal race tomorrow, but they're ever consistent on circuit. Those two are probably the most popular people in all of Denmark for having lent their boats to Jonas Warrer, 2008 gold medalist, when he broke his mast in the pre-start, and remain famous to this day. I believe they're doing a made-for-TV movie on the two of them, actually commemorating that moment, or that whole incident in the 2008 Olympics. Here's in the pink spinnaker, Julian Dortoli and Noé Delpeche. They're our 10th team, we think, entering the theater style racing tomorrow. Not a great day for the two of them. They would have hoped for more. They're tied on points with the Swedes with 141 points, quite a bit behind 8th, who's 8th place. So really all they have to shoot for is, just get the Austrians as you go by, Sam. That's Nico Delacarth and Nicolas Relsch from Austria. They're in 4th place right now. Had a good regatta, kind of a quiet regatta for them. Very, very consistent. Not a lot of race wins, but not a lot of bad races either. And they'll get a chance to try and improve their position tomorrow in the theater. Finns, maybe you can spot the Finns. So Sam, you just passed them. That's Lauri Lettinen. He's got a new crew. Kalle Bask, his old crew, has decided to retire and is now working for his sponsor, Seahow. So those guys are ever popular on circuit. And then if you go a little farther back, we have the Spanish 900 in the red spinnaker. That's Pablo Torrado and as the crew. And the two of them having a great regatta. We'll see them in the theater for the first time in their careers. They're in 5th place in a really tight position with the other 3 boats we mentioned. Any placing will do, but I'm sure they'll be shooting for 4th or even possibly 3rd in the theater racing tomorrow, and it's good to see them on circuit and a young, talented Spanish team. Just behind them are the Danes. That's Jonas Warrer and Peter Lang, 2008 gold medalist and 2012 bronze medalist, teaming up here, and they're in 2nd place. Quite far back from the Kiwis, it's got to be said. I suppose in reality they'll be happy just to secure their placing tomorrow. And then finally we've got the Swedes, Carl Sylvan. First time we've seen them in a medal race at a World Cup, I think. They've really went down to New Zealand and spent 2 solid months getting some time in there, and it's starting to show. The results have been pretty steadily improving from the last few seasons, and we wish them good luck as they battle with Julian Dortoli. Okay, Sam, so why don't you swing it back to the 49er FX course. We're going to put the mic down. It doesn't look like anything's happening too soon with the 49er FX racing. They are all on course now, and of course they can start at any moment, but the red flag is not up yet, which would tell us there's about 10 minutes to go, if not exactly 10 minutes to go. So we'll just keep the camera pointed at the at the starting vessel there, run by Lukey, our class, one of our class race officers, and we'll see how things progress.